Hello everyone, my name is Blue, B-L-U-E, Christian Blue, because I talk about Christianity-related topics on this channel. I'm a Protestant, so be aware that's the perspective you'll be getting here. I know there's a lot of different groups that call themselves Christians. That's a group I belong to. But everyone's welcome here, and you're free to disagree with me in the comments. With that being said, let's get into today's topic. How do we know the Bible we have today is the same Bible that was written 2,000 plus years ago? Valid question. Like, say if I give you a book and tell you to copy it, even if you do your best, there's still going to be some mistakes. Some typos, some misspellings, maybe you'll put a comma instead of a semicolon or use the wrong your. Now, I take your copy, your flawed copy, and give it to someone else and tell them to copy that. I give their copy to someone else, tell them to copy that, so on and so forth. Eventually what I'm going to have is a whole mess. There's going to be lots of mistakes. The copy of the copy of the copy of the copy isn't really going to be the original. It's going to have a lot of mistakes. It's going to be pretty dang changed. Now, you guys all understand this principle. Copies of copies, they lose detail and quality. So, the Bible. A very large book with many different authors and writing styles within it. A book that was written 2,000 plus years ago. A book that we don't have any of the original writings of. How can Christians possibly claim that this is true and an accurate account of history and unchanged over all of those years? That is most certainly a valid question, my fine sir. The first time I ran into this, I thought to myself, well dang, yeah, I'm gonna look into that because I base my entire life on the Bible. If it's just a jumbled, misunderstood phrase that you hear at the end of a game of telephone, then I want to know. So I did look into it. I watched some videos, read some articles, talked to some pastors, and found out that there is, yes, a way that we know that the Bible is quite accurate and unchanged. I find it to be a very logical answer, so I'll share it with you, and then you can let me know what you think about it. Beep, 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 beep. How we know the Bible is accurate and unchanged. Beep, 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 beep. We know our Bible is the same Bible from thousands of years ago because we have over 5,000 early manuscripts of the Bible. A manuscript is a handwritten copy. Now, as we discussed earlier, copies are going to have mistakes, especially handwritten ones, so these copies are no exception. They have variations among one another. However, due to the fact of the copies being written at different times and by different people, the mistakes are different and in different places. They're not copies of copies of copies, they're copies of the original. So we can take these manuscripts and compare them to one another and figure out where the mistakes are by going with the majority on each sentence. For example, say we have 4 written manuscripts of the verse John 1:1. Each version is slightly different, so we know they're not perfect copies, but let's take a look at them and see if we can figure out what the original said with just these. Let's see, 3 out of 4 of them say in the beginning, and 1 of them says at the end. So for our version, we'll write out in the beginning. That's a majority, so it's probably what the original said. For the next line, let's see, the majority says was the word, and just 1 of them says was the Lord. So we can deduct that Lord is a mistake and word was what the original must have been. So we'll just put that one in our version, and so on and so forth. You continue with the process, eliminating mistakes, going with the majority, and you can be pretty dang certain that your result is the accurate original text that everyone was copying. And remember, there's 5,000 early manuscripts of the Bible, not just 4. Like, that's a lot to work with. In a video made by this guy, his channel is called the 10-Minute Bible Hour, he did a little experiment to show this. He gave 50 children a poem and asked them to copy it as best as they can. Afterwards, he gave the copies to a woman and asked her to recreate the original poem using just the copies. Now, the copies obviously had many errors in them. However, by using this process, the woman was able to recreate the original poem perfectly, 100%, which I think is pretty cool. Now, sadly, with our Bible, we can't just compare it to the original and say for absolute certain that we have a correct, accurate representation of the original Bible. We don't have any of the original Bibles to compare ours to. But despite that, I still think it's very logical to assume we have an accurate representation of the Bible. Thousands of scholars over thousands of years have poured their lives into these thousands of manuscripts, comparing them and working through them to come up with the Bible we have today. So I would say that's some pretty solid evidence. That's some evidence and some logic that I'm definitely willing to trust in. Obviously, this doesn't prove that everything in the Bible is true and everything in the Bible actually happened, but it all but proves that everything in the Bible is written down the same way it was thousands of years ago, which is, of course, very, very important for Christians and for scholars. So, I don't want to hear you saying the Bible was written 2,000 years ago. It can't be trusted anymore, okay? Unless, of course, you weren't convinced by this logic, in which case I'll hear you out. Let me know why in the comments. I'm very interested in what you have to say. Before I end, I highly recommend you watch Matt Whitman's video on the same subject. It's definitely better than my video. I'll have it linked down in the description. Thank you everyone so much for watching. My name is Blue, Christian Blue. Goodbye.